Hello and welcome to the Powerfish Podcast. I'm Fish.
And I'm Ben. When somebody tells you that you're being illogical, this is usually a criticism. But what are they actually saying? What are they talking about? What does it mean to be illogical? Today, we're going to find out what it means to be illogical and why Fish is.
Oh, okay. I was just about to say Ben has plenty of experience in this.
I saw that coming from so far down the horizon. I had to get ahead of it, and so I did. But before we get into that, so a few episodes back, we talked about the contingency argument for God's existence, and we had some problems with it, but I don't know why this came to me. Maybe it's because I was doing a lot of research about logic in the last 2 weeks. But so I have this proposition, and I want to know if you agree with it.
Okay.
Or what your thoughts are. So for context, you're going to need to watch that episode because this isn't going to make much sense.
All right, go ahead and watch it. We'll wait.
We'll wait. We'll be here waiting for you. So, okay. We at the end we said that we sort of proved something, not necessarily the God of Abraham, or maybe not necessarily the God that most people have in their mind when they think of the word God, but we proved something.
Yeah.
So what I think we did is not only did we not connect it to any Abrahamic religion, but I think the argument itself disproves any possibility of being the God of Abraham.
What argument? I'm not
the contingency argument.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of struggle with that because it was so, but you're saying I'm
saying the very argument's premises disprove it from ever possibly being. It contradicts from itself from the God of Abraham by way of the God of the Old Testament, which is where all the Abrahamic religions stem from, even Judaism. They don't take the new, but it is described in Exodus as he is self-described. He describes himself this way. He says, "Do not make any idols, for I am a jealous God." Okay?
Yeah.
Everybody knows this. God is a jealous God.
Which is an interesting attribute.
It's an attribute of lacking of a potential, isn't it? If you're jealous of something, it means there's something you don't have that you could. There's a potential that isn't actualized. And by necessity, the God that we proved cannot have that attribute. It cannot have a potential.
So that's hilarious then. If we're going to say that that's the case, which you logically sound, I would say. We're going to get to what is and is not logically sound here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But one of the top arguments made by Christian apologists, and religious apologists for that matter, has a baked-in flaw.
Yeah, I think so. It disproves their own God that they believe in. Because not only that, but if you are to describe your God as an agent, a person that does things, what is doing a thing? It's going from a potential to an actual.
Yeah.
Being an agent that does things is itself having potentials that aren't actualized.
If you have the potential to do something and then you actualize that potential to do the thing. Yeah.
So what we just described might not even be a God. We might have just the contingency argument for whatever fundamental physics is. You know what we might have just proved? That consciousness is fundamental in physics. Because consciousness isn't an agent. But you would say it's immaterial. There is no potential. If we're going to assume consciousness is fundamental, before space and time, before everything, or at least a part of it, then there is no potential to actual transition when it comes to consciousness, right?
You are just conscious.
You just simply are.
Yeah.
So maybe the contingency argument is a contingency argument for consciousness as fundamental in physics, not for a God as an agent.
Could you say that you have the potential to not be conscious, or consciousness has the potential to not present itself?
If it's fundamental, then no. If everything comes after it, then no.
I guess things can be conscious or not conscious, right?
Well, not if it's fundamental.
So consciousness permeates and people partake.
Exactly.
Okay.
If it's right. That's
a decent way around that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's if we're taking this argument as like we described a hierarchical chain of causation, at the bottom something immaterial, something incorporeal, all this stuff that we argued for in the episode. It's not describing an agent. Mm-hmm. And we sort of addressed that with the intelligence point.
Yeah.
It's describing something else, like consciousness, Consciousness, I think, fits the bill more than an Abrahamic God does.
I think I'd agree. I think I would. It's funny because we have touched on this subject, consciousness as a God.
We have in previous time, and
this
and
keeps coming up.
And I think we just proved, scare quotes there, proved. But I think we just discovered one of the most powerful arguments supposed to be for God, instead sort of co-opted as the most powerful argument for consciousness as fundamental in physics.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Actually.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
It is interesting how many disciplines do you think would be able to have the research and knowledge to connect two dots like that? Not many.
Right.
It is interesting how researching different points of seemingly not that related knowledge you can connect to, and it makes a lot of sense. It just goes to show that when you're doing research on things, you should really try to expand on what you research, because there's dots to connect almost anywhere in stuff like this.
It's crazy because I was just thinking just now, like, well, or we could just say that it's not Yahweh or any other type of God like that, Abrahamic God. But we can also say, well, it's not consciousness because consciousness arises from matter, potentially, we could say, or is not fundamental before matter. Or you could say something like that. But you have to put something there for the
exactly.
For that.
We just argued something's got to be there.
Something's got to be there. And if we're pulling from the database that is human knowledge, we know that consciousness is a thing and that it fits the bill. We don't have a better explanation.
Right.
I personally can't think of a better explanation.
Actually, I didn't say this. So like I didn't say, but I'm going to say now. I didn't do a whole lot of thought into this because it only came to mind like 2 days ago. But dude, yeah, I think there's something sound here.
We ought to not now, obviously. We got a lot to talk about today, but we ought to one of these times re-look at that argument, all the 50 points as proposed by Phaser.
Yeah.
And, well, as adapted by Phaser.
Right.
And kind of put it in a framework with consciousness in mind.
We should come at it again without knowing the end point that is God.
Yeah.
If we just follow the logical steps without assuming God at the end, does it make more sense to say something like consciousness is at ground level here?
Yeah.
Because like I said, I must say this potential to actual disproving this argument being able to be attached to something like an Abrahamic God seems, I mean, we didn't think of it in the moment, but it seems pretty obvious and glaring to me. So there's got to be answers out there. I didn't look for them. This has got to have an answer, you know?
Yeah. I sent you that link to that Ken Ham signed book. And you said there's got to be answers out there, and I just said answers
in Genesis, baby.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, dude. Ken Ham would know. He would say, well, actually, the Earth is only 6,000 years old, and the ark is big.
Oh, we gotta go.
I
still want to go,
dude. I've been to the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter. It was many years ago, but they are such cool places. Yeah. They are pseudoscience capitals. Yeah. And it's fun.
It's a good place to get lied to.
Good place to get lied to. Anyway, so let's get on to logic. Comment down below, what do you think the solution to that whole potential actual disproving the God of Abraham thing is? Because like I said, it's got to have an answer. Surely. That seems too obvious to just miss, especially by someone of like Ed Fazer's intellect. And he would have an answer for that. But anyway, so what is logic? What would you describe? What's your one-liner for what logic is?
I guess the structure of argument.
The structure of argument?
Yeah.
Okay. What I would say is logic. Logic is the study of what counts as a valid reason for any what or any why. That's how I would say it.
You know what? I feel like, so for those listening, when I was in college, I took a introductory course on logic. It's been years. I've forgotten most of it. And you'll see that in this episode, how I've forgotten most of it. And
I have no formal education on logic.
Or any formal education for that matter.
I was just thinking that. Or any formal education for that matter at all.
So, yeah, I've forgotten most of that class. I want to say that the professor's definition of logic was similar to what you just said, actually.
Something like that.
That awoke a memory in me.
It arose.
It arose
from
from my fundamental consciousness.
So, logic was first proposed in the way that we know and understand it today by who'd have guessed Aristotle.
Dude, that guy sucks.
Dude, that guy.
Stop talking about that guy.
Dude, we talk about this guy a lot because he's thought about a lot of things.
We got that one. There's that one podcast, Pints with Aquinas. Good podcast, by the way. Listen to this one, but also that one's pretty good.
Pints with Aquinas.
We gotta rename ourselves something with Aristotle.
That's right. We talk about this guy so much. Some Aristotelian name. So he proposed sort of three ground laws of logic. He proposed the law of identity, the law of non-contradiction, and the law of the excluded middle. Those are the big three. And we're going to talk a little bit about those today and a couple others. Some fun ones. So what the law of identity is, how this would be written out in logical notation would be P, which could stand for proposition, postulate, whatever. P equals P.
Yep.
Whatever you postulate is itself. You have to assume can equals can. Can is not can.
Yeah. And there's no getting around that.
And by can, for those listening, I don't mean can as a verb. I mean can as a noun.
Can is not can? Not
Now,
can.
that would be hyper confusing. Bad example. Phone. Phone equals phone. Phone is not something other than phone. Better example.
Phone is not sunglasses.
Phone is not sunglasses.
As an example.
Sunglasses are sunglasses.
That's true.
Right. So without this law, meaning itself sort of collapses. Because if a thing cannot be itself, then we can't even talk coherently.
It gets logic out the window. You can't talk.
Exactly.
You can't talk about things if things aren't things,
or even semantics. You can't assume words have an identity if you throw out the law of identity, even me saying a word might not mean what that word is by the time I finish the sentence, if you do not subscribe to the law of identity.
Yeah.
So this is just like, for you might be thinking, if this is what one of the greatest philosophers in history was doing in his spare time, saying that things aren't something else. Well, yes.
Because we got to get a framework.
We got to get a framework. And sometimes you got to start with the basics.
Yep.
And these 3 ground level laws are going to seem pretty obvious. And I'm going to tear all 3 of them down.
Hell yeah.
And we'll get to that. But
thing is not thing.
we're going to talk about how that's actually a possibility.
It's crazy.
So Aristotle used this law to express being as being itself. Basically, to be is to be something. There is no being without being something. Right?
You can't just be.
You can't just
abstract to be. You have to be a thing.
Being is itself to be something.
Gotcha.
So, because of Aristotle's realist metaphysical views, which, if you want to know about realism, check. Was that last episode?
I think that was last episode.
Check the last episode, and we talked all about realism and Aristotle. But because of his realist metaphysical views, this rule is not just a linguistic rule, right? It's a metaphysical truth about the structure of reality, identity. It's when we say something is something, we're not just saying, yeah, it is that something because we deem it to be so.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying when something has an identity, it persists as that identity because its identity exists outside of space and time.
Right.
It exists as something real, and that real thing does not change. So it cannot and does not change its identity. So this rule is brought under tension. That was confusion. I just saw it in your eyes.
Well, I was. You might have just been trying to get there, but I mean, things change. Things can change, though.
Of course, change exists.
If a thing is a thing, and it is adapted, it becomes something else. Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So, thing is not thing in that aspect. But I guess if it changes, then maybe it's new thing. But it's not partaking of. I'm not making any sense here.
No, I'm
okay.
following.
Okay, but if Aristotle is correct and he has his
in his realist view,
then thing partakes of perfect thing.
Well, that's a Platonic view. Aristotle did not believe in the abstract realm of forms, where there is a perfected version of it.
So he didn't. Well, I know that Aristotle didn't have the realm of forms, but he still envision a perfect identity of a thing?
Yes.
That's what I'm getting.
Okay.
at.
Okay.
So
sure.
so the thing partakes of perfect realm of thing,
perfect form,
perfect form of phone, let's say, and then it becomes altered in some way, and then it is changed. Can it still partake of something else?
Well,
I'm asking a big question that's not very coherent.
This was definitely a question to be asked last episode, but because it does bring realism into the light.
Well, here's where I'm getting at. Let me just ask this, and then we can talk about what I just asked. If something becomes so not like itself that it can't be necessarily considered original form of, could you still make the argument that thing is like thing?
This is a criticism of realism, because let's say, well, a perfect example is evolution.
Yeah, that is
a perfect example. Is evolution. So is
man like monkey? Is man monkey?
And where is there a perfect form of, Homo erectus, right?
Yeah.
Which is somewhere in the middle. Or is Homo erectus partaking of the forms of man and ape? Like, if that's the case, is there a perfect form of every single mutation in between those points?
That's what I was just going to say.
Literally thousands.
If a plant evolves, let's say, a defensive mechanism, and the same plant, maybe of a different, the branch of evolution didn't, are they the same thing? Or are they completely separate things?
Right, exactly. Is one plant in the form of something totally different, or is it in a less perfect form of the other plant?
Let me ask you this. Now, this is just going back into realism when we can deviate off of this topic
realism
again.
Connects very, very close to the law of identity. So
how many subdivisions of realism do you think there are? How many times is there a perfect thing represented?
Well, let's talk about color, because we know how many shades of color there can be. If there's a perfect red, and then there's a perfect, I don't know.
Where does red become pink?
Exactly. And is there a perfect form of pinkness?
Well, there'd have to be if there's a perfect form of red.
But is there a perfect form of reddish pinkness? And every shade in between there?
Is there only perfect forms of prime colors?
And if we're saying that, what are we talking about prime? What is prime colors? Because when we think our red, green, blue, every color can come from red, green, or blue.
What are the prime colors?
And mixtures.
I don't know. I actually know if I remember. Do you remember what the prime colors are?
No, I have no idea.
What are
red, green, yellow?
Prime colors. Primary color.
I don't know.
What is it? Well, it's not just red, green, blue. There's
red,
more.
green, blue is for digital devices, because you can.
I found an article. Primary colors are red, yellow, blue. Red, yellow, and blue, right? Not exactly. Okay.
Well, when you're painting, primary colors are different. Is it red, yellow, blue, where you can get every color from those?
I think that's right.
Because when you're painting, if you mix together any form of red, yellow, and blue in different quantities, I believe those are the three colors you can get everything from. But I ain't no painter. Don't ask me a thing about it.
Yeah, there's a Reddit thread from 2012 in r/Ask Science, and this person asks, why are the psychological prime colors red, yellow, blue?
The psychological prime color.
Different from the mixing primary colors, magenta, cyan, yellow. Which magenta is like purple. Cyan's like a lighter blue.
Is there a perfect magenta? Is there a perfect form of magenta?
I don't know. Well, anyway, all that to what was, I don't remember what the question was.
Well, what are the primary colors? Because are there only abstract perfections of primary colors?
And then also more general from that. How many perfect forms of things are there? Because if we're gonna say, let's go back to that plant mutation just for a second. So if one thing evolves a mutation and one thing doesn't, let's say, is one partaking more from the perfect of either one of them? Is there a perfect form that one of them partakes more from? Or is there now two perfect things that can be ascribed from? Now that begs the question, if this goes on ad infinitum, right?
What do we
does everything have a perfect form? And then at that point,
you've just got more complicated nominalism.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where I was going.
That is exactly a argument again. This is why I wish I had more time to research realism, because we didn't get to talk about arguments at all, for or against. That is an argument against realism. Is where does this stuff stop? No. Like if I give,
it must end.
Exactly. If two people give birth to someone that has a mutation that, I don't know, has a sixth finger, that exists. Yeah. That is a mutation. That is real. Mm-hmm. Let's say, is that person still the abstract form of a person? Or, and if so, if they're a less perfected version of it, which is a bit rude to say.
I was going to say, is a person born with a sixth finger not a human being?
Are they partaking less from the perfection of human than others? But if that's the case, if we say, all right, everybody else on the planet, let's say two people get this mutation, everybody else dies. And then these two people repopulate the earth. Now 6 fingers is going to be what it means to be a human.
Yeah.
Because that's just how evolution worked throughout the however many millions of years.
Right.
Everybody, 6 fingers is now the normal. Are they now the perfect form of human? Like, where does this go and where does this stop? Where's the line here? Yeah, big problem. But anyway, so that's the law.
Just real quick, why did I ask that in terms of logic?
Well,
what was I getting at there?
I'll get into my next point here and you'll remember why. So the law of identity is brought under tension with things that change.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we've talked about this before. One changing thing that brings this law in the question spotlight is the ship of Theseus.
Showed is
The law of identity there. So if you replace the ship of Theseus one plank at a time, and then it's completely new, is it still the ship of Theseus? And if you take all the old planks and build a new ship, is that the ship of Theseus?
Didn't we talk about this one time?
Yes.
What was your answer?
It was a very unphilosophical answer. It was, literally speaking, no. Figuratively, colloquially, yes.
Yeah, I think that's where we both landed. That sounds like what I would have said.
Yeah, it was quite a pragmatic answer, not very philosophical, but kind of that's just where my mind would go on something like that. But in regards to the law of identity, where P equals P, ship of Theseus equals ship of Theseus, but ship of Theseus is sort of changing. Where does the law of identity, like, we can't break P apart and then build it somewhere else. Where does the ship of Theseus go? Does it stay within the ship that has all new planks, or is it in the ship of all the planks that we just replaced?
Yeah, adding in a now quote unquote new ship, whether they be the old planks or the new planks, that really complicates things, because what I want to say is the identity lies in the kind of the idea of it. It is a ship that is shaped that way and was used in this. It has this sort of cultural identity, let's say, within wherever the ship of Theseus resides.
Sure.
But now, if you take the planks and build them somewhere else, now you got two.
Right.
Where does the essence?
One of them was the first one.
Where does the essence stay?
Where is its form?
Yeah.
If you have the form ship of Theseus, which ship is it in?
Now, if you're looking for an answer from me, I would probably say that if you're going to take all of the original parts from the ship and rebuild it, the new ship with the old parts probably is the ship. I feel like I would say that. That feels right. Something about that feels correct. But
I would probably agree.
I don't have a philosophical answer to back that up, but that feels correct to me.
So,
or at least it's more correct than the other ship with new parts.
Right. I think so. But it definitely brings the law of identity into, like, okay, but, like, what are we talking about
now
when we talk about identity?
Now we got two ships. Does P equal P?
Exactly. Is P old ship of Theseus sort of replaced by a new P, new ship of Theseus, new planks? Mm-hmm. Because P equals P. It stays P. P.
Yeah.
It doesn't change into something other P.
Yeah.
So. But also P was completely deconstructed for a while there until we rebuilt it with new planks.
Yeah.
Or it rebuilt the old ship with the old planks is what I meant to say. Yeah, and it gets weird. So there was a philosopher, Heraclitus, who famously said, you can't step in the same river twice because it's not the same river and you're not the same man.
Yeah.
And Aristotle would say, yes, you can, because the forms are the same.
Yeah,
and they stay consistent.
That seems to really be a breakdown. I think we've had this very discussion. I think honestly, the ship of Theseus is a great vessel to have get it because a vessel is a ship. Anyway, it's a great vessel to have that conversation because it's What is the thing? Is it in the material, or is it in the identity, or the essence, or the whatever?
Is it in the form?
Is it in the soul?
Is it in the soul of the ship? I mean, hey, when we're talking about forms or universals, as they're called in the philosophical nomenclature, what was I saying with that? Oh, right. When we're talking about forms, that kind of is what a soul of a particular, isn't it? It is a soul of an immaterial object.
That's crazy because you and I had so many discussions about consciousness, and you always took the very material stance. It was
I just even when I was like deep in the faith, my mind just goes to a materialist worldview. It just goes that way.
And I'm not saying that I still hold this belief, because we've had enough discussions to where I've challenged this worldview quite heavily. But when we would have those discussions, I would come from the stance of the consciousness, the soul, whatever that is, the essence stays with a person, right? If we were to swap bodies,
something would be swapping.
Yeah,
there would be something,
and
swapping.
You always challenge that. But it almost comes down to this almost Aristotelian theory of identity, almost.
Right.
A river is the same because it's form of river, as a way. I am form of myself.
Right.
It's interesting.
It's when we had our first sort of extended argument on consciousness, and we brought up this two separate worlds, but identical in every material way. And I argued that these two people are the same people.
Right.
There's nothing different between them. If they existed in every way materially the same, I was from the stance, these are the same people.
Yeah.
And you were like, no, your essence, you were speaking as a realist there.
It's interesting.
I wouldn't have been able to tell you that at the time.
I couldn't have told you one thing from anything else, really.
But no, that is what was happening there was a realist was arguing with an anomalist, is how that was.
Interesting. Go watch that episode. It was a billion years ago.
And it was like 2 hours of nonsense. We were going back, and it was a silly argument.
Man,
it was
imagine if we knew anything then. That'd be a much better discussion.
We would have had a much more educated discussion if we had our knowledge now, but we're arguing about the same thing. Yeah, no. We and that wasn't even that long ago. That was like, I don't know, a year maybe, if that. And we were significantly more dumb than we are now. And in a year's time, I'm sure we will look at ourselves now and be like, these idiots.
Yeah, dummies.
So anyway, that rule, colloquially, it's kind of inescapable, but it also is brought under tension because I'm a physics junkie. We're going to talk about some physics today. So quantum mechanics, you've heard me talk about this crap a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a quantum mechanics nerd. Confuses this law even more.
Okay.
So let's say P is so we've got an electron. Let's just say we got an electron.
Mm.
It has been unobserved, meaning okay, let's go through the ground rules. P equals an electron that is spin up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Q equals electron that is spin down.
Okay.
But if an electron is in a superposition of spin up and spin down until it's measured, then before the wave function collapses into one or the other, asking if its identity is P or Q it's not a relevant question because it simply is neither. Or you want to say it this way, it simply is both.
Yeah.
And that's not because we just simply don't know the answer. With quantum mechanics, before a particle is observed, it literally speaking is neither spin up or spin down, or in any one location. It is in all of them. It truly is in a superposition of all possible states. It is not a lack of knowledge that we have. We just don't know where it's at. No,
Yeah.
it actually is in all places and all configurations at the same time until the wave function collapses, which is caused by a measurement. If we're talking about law of identity, what is that?
It seems like you can't put a label on it.
Exactly. Its identity is simply all identities possible until measured. Once it collapses, we say, hey, it's a spin-up electron and it's in X position. Great.
Mm.
Now it has a law of identity. It's if we measure that thing over and over and over again from that point on, it's going to stay with those attributes. But before that, it simply was not a relevant question to ask, where is this electron and is it spin up or spin down? It was not a relevant question. So at the everyday level, the law of identity is unshakable.
Mm.
It's simply, if you and I try to think of something, like let's think of laptop, and then also simultaneously think of this laptop as not laptop. It's impossible to do that in your head at the same time.
Yeah.
It's either a laptop or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
As a way of thought, the law of identity simply just can't be escaped. But when we peel apart, fundamental reality, the law of identity doesn't seem to hold, really.
Right.
And it is a bit odd because it brings into question, we'll talk about this more after we get through all these laws, but it sort of brings into question, is the law part of reality? Does it map on the reality? Or is the law just a sort of thought that we made up because it works well with how we think?
I was just thinking that, actually. Is it just in a colloquial sense, just easier to think of thing like thing, even though can't happen in reality?
Right.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah. So we just found a way to talk about how a thing is itself a thing, thing, for 20 minutes. So there's clearly a lot to talk about with such basic ground level laws. But the next one is the law of non-contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
So in logical notation, this would be, it is not the case that P and not P.
Mm-hmm.
So, or it cannot be the case that P and not P.
Mm-hmm.
Something cannot be and not be simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Those two propositions, P and not P, cannot both be true, because that would be a contradiction.
And we just talked about that. So this is kind of reinforcing identity in a way.
And right.
Yeah.
But it's identity is a thing is not some other thing, and non-contradiction is a thing can't also be not a thing. It's not so relevant to identity as what it is, but it's more whatever it is, it can't also be not that thing.
Right.
It does build on identity.
If thing is thing is not thing. Did you get it?
I didn't get that one.
If P equals P, P doesn't also not equal P.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
so-
Yeah. So it cannot be the case that P and not P. So contradictory propositions cannot both be true. You cannot have both P and not P. So Aristotle treated this law as the most certain principle in all of reasoning. This is the most important law. So, because reason being is it is impossible to deny this law without using the law. Right? So if you were to say something like the law of non-contradiction is false, you're already assuming the truth of it by making a truth claim. If you say the law of non-contradiction is false, then if it truly is false, then your statement of it being false could also be true at the same time. You get that?
No.
So
hit me again.
If the law of non-contradiction, I'm making a statement. The law of non-contradiction is false.
Interesting.
But if I declare that the law of non-contradiction is false, then the contradictory statement, the law of non-contradiction is true, is also true. Simultaneously with it being false.
Okay.
Because two contradictory statements can both be true if the law is false. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So
On account of because contradictions would then exist.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So Aristotle later refined this to say that it cannot be the case that P and not P at the same time in the same respect. Because if you were to say, like, there's two people at two parts of the world phoning in to each other, one were to say that it's raining and one were to say it's not raining. Mm-hmm. Those are contradictory statements, but they can both be true.
That's true. Yeah.
So Aristotle was like, let's refine this at the same time, in the same respect. So, due to their differing locations in the world, they're not in the same respect. So,
right.
It's still, the law stands. But there's a paradox with this law. There's a problem with this law already, just within semantics. So it's called the liar paradox. If I say this statement is false, how do you break that down for me? This statement is false.
Well, I would be confused because you're not really making a claim.
I am making a claim.
You're making a claim of a statement's validity, but you can't really check the validity of it. You see what I'm getting at? Yeah, you can't check the validity of this statement is false. It's not verifiable. It just kind of is.
Right, sure. But if we take it at face value, it's not a syllogism that we can accept or deny its premises. But if we take it at face value, if I say this statement is false, and we assume, okay, let's say we have P. P equals this statement is false.
Okay.
So P can be true or false.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say this statement is false, and we say P equals true, then the statement itself would be false. But if the statement is false, then P is false. P is not true. But if P is not true, and I say this statement is false, then it's true.
So I see what you're getting at. So
P equals true.
If the statement is true, then it is false.
And if it's false, then it's true. Simultaneously, the statement contains simultaneity.
That's just
contradiction.
That's just a word game, though.
Exactly. But the problem is, it defies the law of non-contradiction. The statement is simultaneously true and false at the same time.
I mean, could you just say that that doesn't happen in reality? That can't. This is
from Aristotle's point of view. Yes, and I'm going to tear that down too.
Okay. Have fun.
Normally, colloquially speaking, yeah, the law of non-contradiction can't happen in reality. Sure.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you why reality doesn't care about the law of non-contradiction in a moment here.
Sure.
So that's a bit of a paradox, but we're just playing word games, right?
Yeah.
The law is still like, the law is unfazed pretty much. So, but it's also sort of bringing under attention with things like metaphors and poetry and stuff. So they have contradictions yet still make sense. So if we take the phrase, the silence was deafening, that's a contradiction, but it makes sense. When you say that to somebody, they know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what that would imply is that human meaning making and like human reasoning might operate a little beyond rigid mathematical logic. Because if we thought in a mathematical way, the phrase "the silence was deafening" would not be coherent. But people know what that means.
Yeah.
So clearly our brains are doing some sort of computation that is higher than mathematics and logic and reasoning.
We're using other experiences and other data points to make comparisons.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it is a contradiction. It's just because we're not contradicting ourselves, because we're implying something else. We're not implying that the silence is actually deafening. We're implying that it is impactful or something, or uncomfortable.
Yeah. When something's deafening, it doesn't always have to mean auditorially.
Yeah. And even if it is, we are using that as a vehicle to mean something else.
Yeah. So we can sort of, even if our minds are just extremely complex logical computational machines, we can still sort of like context clue piece together a contradiction in a way that means something, even though the phrase itself doesn't make sense in logical notation.
Yeah.
So,
but and the other way you can put that is if you were to try to hyperanalyze that phrase in a logical context, you would simply be taking the phrase out of context. You wouldn't be taking the context of culture or language or the human mind.
Right. So, and that would be that's like poetry. A lot of poetry is "the silence is deafening" that's a poetic sort of turn of phrase.
Yeah.
A lot of poetry thrives on contradictions like that.
Yeah.
And we just, we know what it means. So we are not, presumably, at base level, or not at base level, at more higher order, purely mathematical beings.
Mm-hmm.
But, so in question to your, does law of non-contradiction hold in reality? No. Quantum mechanics bugs this up.
Yeah.
So, particle duality. So, particles have what's called wave-particle duality. If you take an electron, or like a photon or something, or even a whole atom, you can take a whole atom and do this with a proton, neutron, and electron. These particles will act like a wave until it's measured, causing the wave function to collapse, and then it starts acting like a particle.
Right.
So this was you saw a video on this quite a while ago in the double slit experiment, where a single unmeasured electron was shot at a wall with two slits. And it went through the two slits and reacted like it was a wave, as if water was falling through the two slits. Right?
Yeah.
But when the electron was going through those two slits, it was just one electron. It was acting like a wave and interfering with itself. There's no other electrons for it to hit and bounce off of and act like a wave. Mm-hmm. But it interfered with itself. And the only way that would be possible is if the single electron went through both slits and interacted with itself. But because it was unmeasured, we know that superpositions are all possible positions. So it did. The single electron, you might think it could only go through one slit. No, it went through both slits at the same time and went through all possibilities until it was measured. The wave function collapses, and then it acts like a particle that does only one thing at one time. So if we were to say P is a particle and A is a wave, or trying to think of an example here that makes sense in logical notation. So let's take the particle. It can be a particle or a wave. When we apply the law of non-contradiction to it, being a particle is purely opposite to being a wave. There is no both.
Right.
That is a contradiction. But before you measure it and the wave function collapses, it's all. The law of non-contradiction gets thrown out the window because it's a particle acts like a wave measured, and then it acts like a particle. It is both. It is a contradictory thing in itself. So the law of non-contradiction, once you get to the subatomic level, the fundamental physics don't care about your laws of logic.
Facts don't care about your feelings.
Facts don't care about your feelings, in the famous words of Ben Shapiro. Right. So the law of identity falls apart when we look at physics. The law of non-contradiction falls apart when we look at physics.
Yeah.
But both of these are pretty much inescapable at the level of human thought.
Which is interesting because then you ask, can we put a firm statement that this is true, even though
right, exactly,
even though we have a glaring example where it's not clearly not.
It makes you ask that question.
I mean, you could say it's true sometimes, but then what's the point of having a law?
These are the laws of logic. These are unshakable. Apparently, but apparently not. So we got one more law for the three sort of ground level guys, as proposed by Aristotle. We've got the law of the excluded middle. So this would be P or not P. There is no middle. There is no maybe P. So if you have a proposition, the proposition is either true or the proposition is either false. There is no halfway point. It's one or the other.
Right.
So this was, of course, proposed by Aristotle along with the first two laws. So Aristotle himself didn't know if this applied to propositions about the future, right? Because if you were to say P is either P or it is not P, if P is I will get hit by a car tomorrow, under the law of excluded middle, P is either true, forcing myself into determinism, or P is either not true, forcing myself into determinism. Meaning one is true and one is false. No, it doesn't matter which it is, but there is no I might get hit or I might not get hit. So under the law of excluded middle, if you apply this to a proposition of the future, you've automatically just subscribed yourself to determinism.
Interesting.
Which, yeah, that is interesting. And Aristotle didn't like that because he wasn't a determinist.
Yeah.
As far as I understood. So he says that his law doesn't apply to future propositions. He says they are in what's called an indeterminate state, which neither true nor false, which in my opinion, that already takes a bite away from the unbreakable lawness of the law of excluded middle. If you're just like, well, it doesn't apply to if I'm stating a proposition about something in the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a certain group of logicians called the intuitionists who wholly reject the law of the excluded middle entirely, stating that truth, if P equals true, truth only means true if it's a provable truth. Meaning it's impossible to say P or not P unless one of them is actually provable. So if P equals Ben is going to get hit by a car tomorrow, if P is either true or P is either false, there is no middle. The intuitionist would say that's dumb because you can't prove one way or the other. And if something is unprovable, then it cannot be postulated as truth.
Right. Okay.
Which is also to say that much of science in general can't be proven, because science doesn't work in proofs. It works in theories, and it works in disproving theories, right? If we found evidence that disproved relativity tomorrow, then that would be our new standard.
Right.
Science doesn't work in proofs. There is no, if all of our theories could be upended under new evidence, meaning they would not be proved. So science doesn't work in proofs, but under the intuitionist view, given that if it can't be proven, it can't be said it's true.
But is that a problem?
Well, what if we were to say the only things that can be true are things that are provable? What is provable? How do you prove anything? What is proof?
I guess I would say that proof is undeniable evidence. I guess it is, or it is a confirmation in a sense. It is, I don't know, final, I guess. Those are all good words.
So prove something to me.
I don't know if there's, I mean, P is P. That's
P equals P.
That's true.
Law of identity.
Yeah.
Well, then I would say get a microscope and look at an electron.
I guess that's true. Well, so then you come back to, well, I guess this is why I asked the question, is that a problem? Because just because science can't prove things really doesn't mean that we don't have enough evidence to maybe make some decisions.
Of course, yeah.
So
we make decisions all the time on evidence.
I don't feel that making a claim that science doesn't, prove anything objective, let's say, I don't think that's a problem. I just think it's not very settling, I guess.
But if under the intuitionist view, you would also then say that you can't say that it's true
because we don't know,
because it's unprovable,
right? Which I don't know if I'd say that that's a problem. I'm not saying
maybe we can say that things aren't. We can't confidently say that something is true.
Yeah, and that's what I'm not. Again, I'm not saying I'm an intuitionist, but I am saying I'm saying that just
it matter?
Just proposing the idea that we can't actually say anything's objectively true in, let's say, a logical sense or a philosophical sense. I don't think that that's necessarily a problem. It's just unsettling to know, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, because no matter how provable you think something might be, I could just say, well, it's wrong because we might be in a simulation.
Right.
But then you would say, what about abstract proof? What about mathematics? What about logic?
Yeah, maybe it's either true or it's not true, but true enough. I don't know.
I don't know what it would mean to say that 1 + 1 is 2 is. How do you prove that? How do you prove one and one make 2?
I mean, I know how you do it in math. You just count it out. You demonstrate it,
right?
But really, so we're not attacking. What we're not attacking is the structure of mathematics.
No,
we're attacking what it means to do math.
Yeah.
What is
the
doing
way you
math?
demonstrate 1 and 1 = 2 is I have one thing, I have another thing, I have two things.
Yeah.
But we know that under fundamental physics, even that breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we have a two entangled particles, the entanglement between the two make it so that one is impossible to be interacted with without the other. They become the same thing in a sense.
Yeah.
So 1 and 1 don't equal 2 anymore when it comes to entanglement. So even mathematics starts to break down if we map it onto reality.
Right.
But if we keep it as an abstraction, can we say it's proven to be the case that 1 and 1 equal 2? Is if we keep it away from mapping it onto things in the world.
I mean, math as defined by us, it's true.
Yeah.
And is that true enough? Is that just true? This is I feel like we get into this, or at least I ask this question often. But it's because we can think in an abstract sense, and we can try to remove ourselves and look at things on an objective, unbiased basis. But at the end of the day ends. What happens at the end of the day? 1 + 1 = 2. And that's just true. Now, but that begs the question then. Is that just fundamentally true? It's just a fact of the universe? Or is that just something that meshes well with our minds?
Well, it seems to be clear that it isn't a fact of the universe. It seems to be clear that when we try to apply things like logical truth, which is about as adjacent to mathematical truth as you can get,
right?
And we try to map that onto reality. Reality doesn't care about our laws. Reality pays no mind to our law of non-contradiction, right? So these things start to break down when we bring reality into the picture. But if they stay as the abstractions on their own, if we don't bring reality into the picture, I don't know what it would mean for these things to be false. I don't know how you falsify 1 and 1 = 2, right? Keeping reality out of it.
Yeah.
So
what we understand one to be and what we understand one to be added together makes two things.
Right.
And that when our entire mathematical framework is built on that mentally, there's no way to separate it.
Right.
And it doesn't really matter if it doesn't work in reality. It just kind of is what it is for our own mental state.
Right. Well, with the law of excluded middle, the cat just came to say hi. You better keep your mouth shut over there. We don't want your voice in the microphone. With the law of... pause. Okay, we're back. Cat's out of here. He won't cause any problems. So, I don't remember what we were talking about, but I'm going to move on to how, once again, quantum mechanics takes the law of the excluded middle and throws it in the bin. So, because of superimposed states, superpositions, if we say a quantum system is either A or not A, it's either in position A or not position A, that doesn't make any sense because the superposition is in all positions until the wave function collapses upon measurement. So the law of the excluded middle, once you map it onto fundamental physics, it breaks down. So propositions, these propositions can fail to have a definite truth value, not because of ignorance or unprovability, but because reality, just fundamental reality itself, isn't determinate and it doesn't care about our laws of logic.
Right.
So I've got a couple of fun ones. We've got some an argumentative law called the Reductio ad Absurdum, which that one, most people know what that is. And then we got ex falso quod libet.
It's a fun one.
This is a fun one. So this is also referred to as the principle of explosion. So if we take the law of non-contradiction and discard that law, and we say contradictions can be true, P can be true and not P. can also be true at the same time. So the proposition, I am gay. Proposition 1, I am gay. Proposition 2, it is not the case that I am gay.
Oh.
Conclusion, fish is currently on the moon.
That's good.
That's a valid argument. That is logically valid. It sure ain't sound.
Well,
but do you?
Interesting.
You can try to break down how you think contradictions can lead to any conclusion as through a valid argument. How do you think that's possible?
The thing is that those things aren't related.
You're right. That's wild.
So I mean,
if you allow contradiction to be true, anything can follow. Logically, anything can follow. I could replace fish is currently on the moon with my tablet is made out of bricks and this can is a fish.
Yeah.
And it still would have been logically valid.
Well, so here's where I'm getting confused. So okay, gay and not gay. Mm-hmm. If we're saying contradictions are fine, then sure. How do you logically step into a totally different topic?
So let me break it down. So ex falso quod libet. This one's fun. So from a contradiction, anything follows. It is true to say that I am gay. We're going to assume this is the law of non-contradiction is out the window. Mm-hmm. It is true to say I am gay, and it is not the case that I am gay. Those are both true. Mm-hmm. Okay. That doesn't work in our brains, but just work with me here.
Okay.
It is true to say I am gay, and it is not the case that I'm gay. Since both propositions are true, in logical notation, it makes sense to simplify it to just one proposition. Mm-hmm. If you were to say it is raining and it is pouring, proposition 1, it is raining, proposition 2, it is pouring. You can, in a logical notation, it makes sense to just get rid of the proposition because both are true, and just say P equals true. It is the same to say it is raining. What follows it is pouring.
Yeah.
It's just redundant. So you can reduce it to just P equals true. So in the same way, if both propositions are true, it can be simplified to one proposition, and we can just say, I am gay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're simplifying. It is still the case that I am not gay. Right?
Gotcha.
But we're simplifying the proposition to just I am gay. Mm-hmm. Since we can do that, we can add a new proposition. So we can say P or Q, with Q being fish is currently on the moon. So P, I am gay, or Q, fish is currently on the moon. And since it is not the case that P equals true, because I am also not gay, therefore, it is the case that fish is currently on the moon.
Okay.
Did you follow?
Yeah. So basically, we're getting there because we are simplifying arguments.
Exactly.
We're simplifying arguments if we're going to assume that contradictions can be true, in which case then we can simplify things.
Exactly.
Making room for further premises.
So if we just in a logical notation sense, this doesn't translate to audio well, you would say P and not P, therefore P, a new syllogism, P or Q, not P, therefore Q.
Yeah, because of the or statement.
Exactly, because of the or statement. Mm-hmm. So in logical notation, from a contradiction, anything can follow. And that's pretty fun because that's a valid argument. So the Reductio ad Absurdum, this one is used all the time. This is an argumentative sort of logical law. So it's a form of argument that tries to show that the following logic of a given proposition, leads to an absurdity or a contradiction.
Mm-hmm.
So the reductio ad absurdum, let's just apply it in a example here. If I were to say all opinions are equal, that sounds on its face, sure.
Yeah.
Without thought, all opinions are equal. So let's apply the reductio to this. The reductio of this would be, okay, so a toddler's opinion on climate change is equal to that of a climate change, actual educated academic.
Yeah.
His opinion on it. That's the reductio of the proposition all opinions are equal.
Right.
When you take something to its logical extreme, see that it leads to just nonsense.
Mm.
And then you sort of bring it back and say, okay, so therefore all opinions are not equal.
Yeah. And some opinions may be equal, but not all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or same thing with something like ignorance is bliss, right?
Mm.
I sometimes say that.
Yeah.
If someone is arguing the point that being ignorant makes people happier, you could follow this proposition to its logical endpoint and state that if it's true, then schools should shut down and stop educating our youth because they would all be happier if they were ignorant, right? That's the reductio of the proposition ignorance is bliss.
I suppose, yeah.
So I use this constantly. When we're arguing,
Yeah.
this is fun.
Yeah.
The reductio ad absurdum.
Yeah, no, I'm recognizing it. You're always like, yeah, what if this crazy thing happened? It's
Like, if I try to take this so far outside of reality, I try to take propositions just as far as they can go when I don't like the proposition.
yeah. Which, I mean, the clap back to that is, okay, sure, sometimes this doesn't apply, but it maybe applies in the vast majority of times.
Right.
The shutdown in there is pretty easy, but it requires some refinement
Right.
of the original proposition.
Right. The reductio ad absurdum is a fun logical twist on argumentation.
What was that? We did a short a long time ago. It was one of our earlier shorts. We weren't even in video yet. What was it? Oh God, I'm blanking. We were talking about the weather. I don't know if you remember this conversation. We were talking about the weather, and
This is not ringing bells.
And let's hold on. I'm just gonna pull it up. We'll throw it up on screen because this was hilarious.
Yeah, Texas is cool. Depending on, there are certain parts of Texas that I think aren't cool. Like the temperature. Am I right? God.
Never speak again.
Anyway, so I don't particularly care for warm weather. So I don't know. I've always kind of thought if I was willing,
You take freezing shit over warm weather?
review the sentence that I just said, and anywhere in that sentence that I say I want to walk in 30 feet of snow. All I said.
Okay, now hold on. Review my sentence, and where the hell did I ever bring up 30 feet?
Well, you might as well with your reaction to what I said. God damn it. Just let me finish my damn sentence. You might have gotten to where I want to go. Instead of derailing the conversation to where you thought I was going to go, when I was already trying to get there. Anyway.
Dude, I have, even after listening to that, I have no memory of that ever happening.
That's so funny.
Okay, I reductioed you, and then you counter reductioed me. Dude, yeah, that is a perfect example. That is a perfect example of the reductio ad absurdum. And we took it so far.
That's
Exactly.
so funny.
It went from I like cooler weather more than you like freezing shit. And then you said, I didn't say 30 feet of snow. Yeah. That's a reductio ad absurdum war. Yeah. I'm mind blown that you remembered that. That's crazy.
That's a deep cut there.
That is a perfect example of that. Yeah. Okay. So this all just brings us to the question: how do we ground logic and reason itself. How do we ground this thing?
Yeah.
We've shown that logic, the most fundamental logical laws, don't map onto reality.
Yeah.
Reality cares not for our little laws that we made up.
Yeah.
Right? So does that just mean that we made them up? And if that's the case, what are these things grounded on? How can we say that the very things that we use for reason have no grounding, right? We can't ground logic without using the logical laws. We can't ground the truth of these things without assuming they're true from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right? Like the law of non-contradiction or the law of identity. We straight up just can't think without these laws. We can't be coherent without these laws. So it makes you think, is logical reasoning simply just the way that we evolved for the sake of, because it helps us survive? Because brains that could do logical reasoning did better than ones that didn't.
But it's not satisfying to say that we can't, extract a logical framework from the universe. Right? That's not
right.
That's not satisfying. You want to say that we have some grasp of reality, but we're saying that maybe we don't, and it's only to help us survive. But then, what is true?
Exactly. Then if our ability to reason is simply a consequence of natural selection, then it has absolutely no bearing on truth value. None at all.
And that doesn't make sense.
It certainly is an uncomfortable thing to accept. Now, bit of a teaser here. There's a copious amount of literature on evolution and how it has stunted our ability to find truth.
Yeah.
That's going to be a future episode. I don't know if it's going to be next episode, but it's going to be a future episode.
Yeah.
But
that'll be good.
Yeah. It makes, given that the way we use reason doesn't map onto reality once we get into fundamental physics.
Right.
It's like, well, how do we know? How do we know that when we do reasoning, we are getting closer to truth versus when we're not reasoning?
Mm-hmm.
Right? When we're using logic, how do we know that we're getting closer to something that is true versus when we're not using logic? We just don't. We can't really know that if it's just a consequence of natural selection. If it's just because people who had the mutation of not being able to have a brain that can coherently think in contradictions died off, and the ones that could not coherently think in contradictions survived. And that's just what laws of logic are. That's a very unsatisfying conclusion.
It doesn't make any I was going to say it doesn't make any claims about the universe, but it actually revokes claims of the universe. It calls them into question. Mm-hmm. We can't be certain of anything because we have a bias. Oh my God.
I just destroyed my table. Yeah. So it also brings, many of our episodes come back to this, God himself. So is God, in a sense, bound by the laws of logic? When someone says, like, this is always such a, when I was a Christian, I always hated hearing this because this was such a stupid question. But having a hindsight philosophical view of it, it doesn't seem such a stupid question. If you were to say, can God create a square circle? Or can God create a stone so heavy he can't lift it?
Well, the reason it sounds like a stupid question is because the people who are asking it are stupid.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah, people are just like, "Oh, your God fake."
Can you square a stone so heavy you can't lift it?
Yeah, yeah, and if you had an answer to that, they wouldn't know what to do with it,
Right.
You know? But from a philosophical framework, it is an interesting question: can God be contradicted or something, or can God exist is God not powerful enough to do something impossible, or is he bound by logic?
Right. And if you say God is bound by logic,
I mean, he's not all powerful. Yeah.
Exactly. But you're also saying that logic was there before God.
Is logic God?
Is logic God? No. But it's and if you say God is not bound by the laws of logic, by the laws of non-contradiction, and stuff.
Yeah.
Then you would say, yeah, he can make a square circle. He can make a stone so heavy he can't lift it. Mm-hmm. He can enact these contradictions. After all, if fundamental physics can do it, can't God?
Yeah.
Right? And you then have to add in, if logic is simply an evolutionary survival trait, God didn't evolve, and therefore God especially is not bound by the laws of logic, which would make him an irrational creature. Because logic is what rationality is built on, is what it is.
Right.
And you would also then say, yeah, God can make square circles. He can do contradictions. And that also doesn't make any sense.
I guess whenever I was a Christian, my response to those kind of type of questions would be probably, but why would he? Because
yeah, I've heard that one before. He can, but he just doesn't.
Well, yeah. and the follow up to that, to kind of dive a little deeper into it, is why would God make a universe, a reality even, that circles are circles and squares are squares, only to make a square circle?
Yeah, why would he do that?
Yeah, it's not just so like, yeah, but he just doesn't want to. It's like, if you're going to create a framework, why
just stick within the framework?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a philosophical answer to is God bound by the laws of logic would be, God is a logical, a reasonable, a rational creature. What it means to be God is part of the nature, the form, the abstraction, this thing's attributes. Being a God is to be rational. It is in the same way that roundness is a universal of a circle. Rationality and these logical frameworks are part of the universals of being God. That's part of what it means to be God, is being a rational creature. So when you would say something like, can God make a square circle? They would say, no, not even God can do that, because that's God can do anything, and that's not a thing. You're just making words up.
I feel like the better way to put that is, can God make a square circle? The answer is probably if he wanted to, but God can also create another reality where circle is a square.
Yeah, sure.
Why would he not be able to? I don't know. I've always felt like that was a little silly. I mean, if I were to believe in God, I would believe in a God that can make a square circle. But why? So. But again, why would he? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That seems,
It's an interesting question, but I still think it's a little... I think if you're going to grant that God exists, then everything else follows.
Yeah. Including these questions of logic. And if we are simply logical creatures because we evolved to be that way, then God himself cannot be bound by those things. And yeah, but then you would say, well, why would God sort of set us on the evolutionary direction to evolve in a way that does not detect truth, right?
Mhm.
That wouldn't be a very cool thing to do.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, so that's logic for you.
Dang.
And we've discovered that perhaps logic, when we try to apply it to the world, it just doesn't work. The world, reality, doesn't care about our little laws. Reality doesn't care about how well we understand it. And maybe evolution really did us a dirty.
It'd be doing that sometimes.
Evolution be doing us dirty sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, we got a game to go to.
We got a game to go to. All right. Syllogisms. What's a syllogism?
Proposition 1, all men are mortal. Proposition 2, Socrates is a man. Conclusion, Socrates is a man. Conclusion, Socrates is mortal.
And why do we have these? What do they do? What do they accomplish for us?
Shoot. What do they accomplish? Well, it sure puts the validity of an argument in a bit more clear view than sort of normal colloquial linguistics does.
Show does. So what I've got here is I've got a list of syllogisms, and what you're going to do, I'm going to read them to you. Okay. And what you're going to do is you're going to use some logical mathematics to try to figure out, and I can reread it as many times as you need. I've got a lot here. We'll only do, maybe a handful of them, something like that. I didn't come up with these. I was going to come up with these, but I found an excellent resource for this. This is published for students at the University of Massachusetts to kind of help with the basic building blocks of reason. So these are formulated for the answers anyway. They're formulated in P and Q statements.
Yep.
So it should be pretty easy to follow along with. So we'll just start at the top. We can always jump around. So most of these are in premise, conclusion. So I mean, it's pretty
two premise,
basic. Two premise and a conclusion, okay. almost exclusively here. So
what am I trying to do?
Check the validity of it.
Okay, so I'm saying valid yes or valid.
Yeah, I mean you can tell me if it makes sense either.
Q equals true or Q equals false.
Yeah, basically. All right, and then I want you to actually, I'm going to tell you just what it says, and I want you to try to plug it in as if it were a P and Q and not this, and therefore, yeah. Okay. If Jane has a cat, then Jane has a pet. 2. Jane has a cat. Therefore, Jane has a pet.
Okay.
I can always reread that if you need me to.
If Jane has a cat, then Jane has a pet.
Mm-hmm.
Jane has a cat. Therefore, Jane has a pet.
That's right.
Well, that's certainly valid. Conclusion is valid. So it would be like premise 1. Premise 1, cats are pets. Premise 2, Jane has a cat. Conclusion, Jane has a pet.
Yeah, so that would be if P, then Q. P, therefore Q.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And that is...
Q, P, therefore Q.
This is interesting. So they actually tell you what argument it is. So this is, I don't know these pronunciations. I'm going to be completely honest. Modus
ponus.
Modus ponus.
Mm-hmm.
Hocus pocus. Exactly.
Hocus pocus.
All right.
Yeah, modus ponus is, if P then Q, P, therefore Q. Yep.
So let's revisit Jane here and her cat.
Law.
So if Jane has a cat, then Jane has a pet. Jane has a pet, therefore Jane has a cat.
That's invalid.
Okay. Why is that?
So if Jane, read the premises again.
If Jane has a cat, then Jane has a pet.
Okay.
Jane has a pet, therefore Jane has a cat.
Okay, so this would be P equals Q. So a cat is a pet. Premise 2 would be Jane has a pet. So P equals Q. Jane has Q. Oh, I don't know how you would put that one. Therefore, Jane has P, but that's not.
Right. So the way they break this down,
that's not valid.
if P then Q, Q therefore P. It's literally the one
The
before,
inverse,
but
yeah.
reverse. So they put this here. This argument form is commonly mistaken as being valid. Notice that even though the premises are true, the conclusion could still be false. Jane could have a dog, which makes a lot of sense.
Right. If it's raining, therefore, I am wet. I am wet, therefore, it is raining. Doesn't follow.
Exactly.
I could be in the shower.
Exactly. All right. Here's another one. We're going to move away. There's actually several on Jane and her cat situation, but we're going to move away from that. There's a lot of logic to be
There's
gleaned.
a lot of Jane cat logic. Okay.
If pigs fly,
Oh, shoot.
then hell has frozen over. Premise 2. Pigs fly. Therefore, hell is frozen over.
I would reject premise 1, but
On a like trueness standpoint, you mean?
if it's it's an if-then statement, but the statement the if statement, the than statement doesn't follow from the if, right? But in logical notation, it's a valid argument.
Yeah. So it's the same
It's
one
not
actually.
sound, but it's valid.
If P then Q, P therefore Q. It's
Right.
that modus ponens.
Modus
ponens.
Yeah.
One again.
Yeah. So validity means, like we just had the principle of explosion, ex falso quod libet. Validity doesn't mean truth value, which would be soundness. If an argument is sound, it means the premises are true. If it's valid, it means the conclusion follows from the premises, regardless of the truth value of the premises.
Right.
So that is unsound, but it is valid.
Exactly. Now here's an interesting one. If E.T. phones home, then blue is Joe's favorite color. Okay. It is not the case that blue is Joe's favorite color. Therefore, it is not the case that E.T. phones home.
If E.T. phones home, then Joe's favorite color is blue.
Yeah.
Joe's favorite color isn't blue.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, E.T. did not phone home.
Yeah.
Okay, it's valid. But no, it's not. Wait, hold on. Let me think about this.
Okay,
one.
think about it.
This is if P then Q, Q therefore P. But that's not valid. But what is invalid about this? Or is it invalid? So if
That's
E.T.
the question at hand, really.
Exactly. That's the problem. If E.T. phones home, then no, yeah, it's invalid. It's invalid.
It is valid.
It is valid?
Okay. Hold on. This is okay.
So the way I rationalize this is if E.T. phones home, therefore Joe's favorite color is blue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but Joe's favorite color is not blue.
You mean to break it down in your P's and Q's?
Yeah, P and Q me.
Okay.
Yeah, that was stupid of me.
If P, then Q. Not Q, therefore not P.
Oh, yes. It's not if P then Q, Q therefore P. It's right. Okay, yeah. If P then Q, not P, therefore not Q. Okay.
Wait, that was
not Q, therefore not P.
Yeah.
Pardon. Yeah.
Because Q follows P.
Not Q.
If P
not
then
P.
Q, but without Q, no P.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
But
okay.
But you could have
You can
have P and not Q, or Q then not P.
Okay, so how this would work is if P then Q, not Q, therefore not P.
Mm-hmm.
But if P then Q, yes Q, therefore yes P, that's not valid.
Right, because P then Q.
Yeah. So if P,
Yeah.
this is okay.
This is where it gets
maybe we should
confusing.
slow down with the logical notation because this doesn't translate to audio for crap.
I mean, it doesn't translate to video for crap either. I mean, there's nothing to see.
That's true. So this doesn't just logical notation doesn't podcast well, perhaps.
Yeah. You just got to follow along.
You
That's
just
all.
got to follow along. I mean, you just get your P's and Q's.
Yeah. Well, here's what we'll do. We'll just move on then.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I boofed that one.
I don't know where we're at as far as how many, but all right.
3.
Dan plays the cello. Oh, nice.
Okay. That's good for Dan.
This is number 2 here.
I don't.
If Mary plays the harp, then Owen plays the clarinet. Therefore, it is not the case that Mary plays the harp.
What? Okay. Dan plays the cello.
Yeah.
If Mary plays the harp, then Dave plays the clarinet.
Owen, but yeah.
Owen plays the clarinet.
Therefore, it is not the case that Mary plays the harp.
These are premise 1 has nothing to do with premise 2. Dan's involvement with the what?
The cello.
The cello. Dan's involvement with the cello is completely irrelevant from the conclusion here. This is totally invalid.
Okay, let's look. So it is invalid.
Yeah.
So, and here's why. P is just P.
Yeah, P equals P.
P equals P here. If Q, then R. Therefore, not Q. That doesn't make any sense.
That makes no sense. That makes no sense. If Q, then R, therefore not Q. We haven't put anything on R.
Right.
Yeah. And P, well, P equals P. P has no bearing on Q and R. So yeah.
No.
We can't say therefore not Q at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting
Invalid.
one. Premise 1.
I'm smart.
Premise 1. Kate is a lawyer. Premise 2. Therefore, Kate is a lawyer.
That would be the law of identity.
Yeah.
That's P equals.
There you go. That one was
That's
pretty
a valid
easy.
one. Yeah.
All right, let's just do a couple more here. Let's get it.
That's P. That's P equals P, and it cannot be the case that P and not P.
What's a good one here? What's this one?
Dude, I love logic. It's so silly. I love it.
Here we go. All Smurfs. Hold on. All Smurfs are snorks, right?
Oh God.
Okay.
Okay.
All Ewoks are snorks. Therefore, all Smurfs are Ewoks.
That's invalid. That's okay. So that's if P equals A and Q equals A, therefore Q equals P is invalid.
Yeah, that is invalid.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do one more good one here.
Because A is a larger subset. A larger set where P and Q equal 2 smaller subsets within the set A. Or whatever.
Actually, let's do 2 more. Let's do these 2. Okay. All right. Amy joins the army, or Mary joins the Marines. It is not the case that Mary joins the Marines. Therefore, Amy joins the army.
That's not valid. So
Why?
if P, it was Amy joins the army, Mary joins the Marines?
Amy joins the army, or Mary joins the Marines.
Or, Amy joins the army, or, it's an or statement. No, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's valid.
It is valid.
Yeah.
So P or Q, not Q, therefore P.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the second half of Ex Falso Quadlibet.
Mm-hmm.
You rule out one, therefore the other.
Yeah.
That's,
if you're going to have
that's how or statements work.
If you're going to have an or statement, that implies one of them is true.
Right.
And not both of them and not none of them.
Right.
Last one here. I think we're close to having done 10. I think. Or 8. Whatever. And I'm out. All right.
I've
here we
failed.
go.
I'm failed one so far.
Yeah. I don't even remember which one you failed, but yeah, you failed it hard. Really bad.
I don't know. It wasn't one of the Jane cats.
All right. This one. We're done with the Amy and Mary saga, but we're still going to talk about the military here.
Okay.
All right. Ariel joins the Air Force, or Nancy joins the Navy. Nancy joins the Navy. Therefore, Ariel joins the Air Force.
Not valid. Wait. Yeah, not valid. Ariel joined the Air Force. Nate, huh? Nancy joined. Nancy,
Huh?
Nancy joined the Navy, and it's an or statement,
Yeah.
meaning it's not an and statement. They're not both true.
Right.
Nancy joined the Navy, therefore Ariel did not join the Air Force.
Yeah. So that is invalid. So that
invalid.
is P or Q. Q therefore P.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make any sense. So the premises don't guarantee that Ariel joined the Air Force, though they might have. In logic, the word or is usually understood in its inclusive sense.
Mm-hmm.
So you should understand that the first premise is saying something to the effect of either Ariel joins the Air Force or Nancy joins the Navy, or both.
Or both?
That's what this says. What? That threw me for a loop a little bit.
Wait, what? Or both? Or, okay, either or means one or other, not.
Yeah, I don't know what
Not and.
that threw me for a loop a little bit. That says to the effect of either Ariel joins the Air Force or Nancy joins the Navy, or both.
Well, then it would be an and statement,
Which would make this potentially true.
which would make it a potentially true, yeah.
But they mark it as invalid. Bad resource.
Uh,
I don't know what they're doing at the University of Massachusetts, but
Fire 'em.
everything was great until the last 2 words.
right. Okay.
Well, that's the game. That was a good one.
Well, yeah, that was fun. Dude, syllogisms are great. These get hard when you start adding premises 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
They get tough.
Yeah.
They get pretty tough. Because even just when you add things like or statements, if then statements, like they can get pretty in the weeds. But no, yeah, syllogisms are great. All arguments, all propositions, if you postulate any claim of truth value, it can be broken down into a syllogism.
Yeah.
And it can be, the logical notation can be applied to each proposition and the following conclusion and its validity. And in a way, our minds do that.
Yeah.
They do that automatically and very quickly. And in other ways, they don't do that because sometimes logical fallacies can slip through.
Even if you don't know, because like there are oftentimes, I think anybody will do this, where you'll hear somebody say something and you're just like,
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes postulates can feel a little off for whatever reason and you don't know why. And it's because there's a fallacy hidden within the premises.
Yeah.
But you can't always just find the logical fallacy within premises when the premises sometimes are put forward in just a semantic argument, a sentence.
Right.
It's harder to break it down in its logical.
Most people don't present things in a syllogistic format.
Right. Yeah. There was a funny joke, like how in the world of apologetics, oftentimes arguments for God are put forward as syllogisms to protect their validity because you want them to be as valid as they can be.
Yeah.
And a lot of criticisms towards apologists is that's not very Jesus-like because Jesus wasn't doing apologetics. He wasn't saying, "Here I say unto you, premise 1." You know, I thought that was kind of a funny sort of logical jab at
Maybe he
apologists.
should have though.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah, Jesus should have been like contingency argument, get it on there. Yeah. Teleological. He's like, yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, that was fun. Logic is fun. The amount of literature on logic is near infinite. I mean, there's college courses on the thing. So yeah, it is basically just mathematics by way of argumentation and semantics.
Yeah.
So, which is sick. I love
Very
that.
cool.
I have a very logically attuned brain. That's how I work. So let us know what you think about the first point on contingency. I'm interested to hear some more rebuttals to that. And let us know some of your favorite logical fallacies, because those are fun too.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next episode.
See ya.